If you are a music producer and you're struggling with cymbal bleed in the close mics of your drum shells, then I have something for you that you might want to check out. Hi, I'm Stefan from Mix66 and in this video I want to show you a little trick that I discovered recently. It will help you reduce cymbal bleed in your close mics of the drum shells. This trick is some kind of combination between the FabFilter ProMB multiband compression trick and the famous Andrew Wade parallel out-of-phase compression trick. Before we jump into the DAW, let me remind you that 95% of my viewers are not subscribed. If you want to see more music production tips in the future, then please consider subscribing. And now let's jump into the DAW. So here we have a little drum groove that I recorded. Let's listen to it without any bleed reduction technique going on, so just a recording which is slightly mixed. We have a kick, a snare, overhead and room mics, and let's listen to it. Just the room. There is some distortion on it, some FabFilter Saturn, the overhead. Also these are slightly mixed with some EQ and some Soothe, the kick. Also here we have some EQ, some more EQ and compression, and also the gate section from Steven Slade Trigger 2 is enabled. And now let's listen to the snare. Also here there is some EQ going on. So let's listen to the recording with some EQ on it. You can hear that the hi-hat is very loud in the snare recording. One very common technique to get rid of this hi-hat sizzle in the snare mic is to use FabFilter ProMB, a multiband compressor, where we put an expander just on the top end of your snare recording. So right now everything above 820 Hz is attenuated by 30 dBs. When there is a snare hit, so when the signal exceeds the threshold, the signal gets expanded by 30 dB. So we will hear the attack of the snare, but then afterwards the signal is turned down again. Of course, as it is a multiband compressor, this affects only the high end above 820 Hz. Let's listen to this method. Once again with this plugin disabled. Now, if we listen now again with this plugin enabled, you can hear that the bleed is gone, which is a great thing, but you can also hear that the attack of the snare drum is some kind of harsh. So you can clearly hear that there's a lot of cymbal in the attack of the snare. So there's a short burst of cymbal in the snare mic. Again, not ideal. Let's take a look at another famous bleed reduction technique made famous by Andrew Wade. If I find the video, I will also link it in the description so you can see how Andrew Wade does it. What he basically does is he duplicates the snare track, and on the duplicate he first compresses just the attack. So he loads the stock compressor, he's using Pro Tools. In my case it is the Reaper stock compressor. And attack as fast as possible, ratio as high as possible, release fairly short, so you want to compress just the attack of the signal. Now if you listen just to the duplicated track with this compressor on, you can hear that the transient is completely chopped off. You can also see it in the gain reduction meter. Now after the compressor, Andrew Wade inserts a high pass filter where he filters out everything above 700 Hz. And now flip the phase on this duplicated track. In my case it was already flipped. and listen to the result with just the snare. Again, you can hear that the bleed is mostly gone, but we have a weird attack with some cymbals in it. Let's see if we are able to adjust this with the settings of the compressor. Maybe it is better, but it's somewhat of a compromise. We either get rid of the cymbal in the snare transient or we choke the transient completely off. So yeah, we have to find a balance where both is alright. And now let's take a look at what I have come up with. It is basically a combination of both these techniques. So I have duplicated the snare track and I have inserted FabFilter ProMB onto the duplicated track. I have created two bands, one above 820 Hz and one below. I have muted the low band, and on the high band there is a compressor. Attack is at 0 and release is at 22%. So basically I have recreated what Andrew Wade does with these two plugins using just one single plugin ProMB. Notice also that the look ahead is at 20 milliseconds. And also the phase on the duplicated track is flipped. But why do I prefer using just ProMB instead of the stock compressor and the stock EQ? Well, I think that the transient of the snare sounds different. In my opinion, there is more attack of the snare left in the signal, but with less cymbal bleed. So exactly what we are looking for. I guess it has to do with just the attack curve of ProMB. So let's listen to the difference between this technique with just ProMB on the duplicated track and the technique that Andrew Wade uses. First, we will listen to my technique with ProMB on the duplicated out of phase track. Let's solo the snare. Now Andrew Wade's technique. I just feel like with ProMB on the duplicated out of phase track, the cymbals are not so obvious in the snare signal. But I have to tell you another trick that I've used on my technique, and that is a Transient Designer on the snare bass, so on the combination of these two tracks, and also Soothe. If you use Soothe on your snare track with a fairly high attack of 5 and a fairly long release, the algorithm is on hard, then Soothe will filter out some of the weird cymbal resonances in your snare signal. So let's sum up how I achieved this snare bleed reduction trick. First of all, I have duplicated my snare track. I have loaded ProMB on the duplicated snare track and flipped the phase on it. Here are the settings if you want to take a screenshot and try it out on your own. And then on the bass where both of these snare tracks is going to, I have first loaded Soothe 2 with the detection algorithm set to hard, depth at 7, sharpness 5.7, selectivity 6.3, the standard EQ curve, and attack at 5 and release at 6.7. This again, as I said before, will help you filter out some weird cymbal resonances. Now let's listen once again to the final result with all the drum signals on. Let's listen once again with the duplicated track disabled, so now we will hear just the main snare signal. You can hear when I unmute this duplicated snare track that the hi-hat gets out of the way and the drum mix gets much clearer. There you have it. This is my trick to reduce cymbal bleed in your close mics. I hope you have learned something today, and if you want to have great sounding drum samples, then just click the link in the description and you can download my drum samples for free. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.